reality, my mentality. Everything changes so rapidly, and I'm ready for the never-ending fire. Dancing with my deepest, dark desires. Miracle, how empirical. Don't know anything quite hysterical. Everything around me transpires as I fulfill my darkest desire.
Hey guys, before the video starts, I'd just like to say, hope you guys are enjoying the summary of Blackbird so far. Part 3 will be out soon. But yeah, before the video starts, I'd like to say, I'd like to give a huge shout out to Arcade Endo because, well, number one, he makes really good videos, and I think he definitely deserves a lot more subscribers. And number two, he says that if he hits 1,000 subscribers, before, like, around April, or before, then he will make an ASMR channel. Roll the clip.
If I reach 1,000 subscribers by let's say April, then I will make an ASMR channel. Okay, I don't want to do it, but if I reach 1,000 by April, I will make an ASMR channel.
So yeah, he's going to be making an ASMR channel at 1,000 subscribers. I don't know if he's actually going to do it, but still subscribe to him because he makes really good content. And yeah, just get straight to the video. When he gets to the train tracks, he sees a bunch of cop cars, and like Noel made his way to yellow caution tape, and a cop was there who he thought a cop was there and asked him who he was and if he knew what happened here. And Noel thought of him as like a cliche because he looked like he had just walked off a TV set for a cop show. He thought he looked really cliche. The cop told him that if he had nothing to add or help the cops with for this case, that he should just go back. He can't be here. But then Noel just ignores the cop. He leans over past the cop to look behind him, and he sees black feathers laying around the tracks. He could also see Sam's parents, Molly and Paul. They're really nice people, but his mother's like crying. They're really upset. Yeah, Noel had met them before, but now his mother was crying. Her head was like against her husband's shoulder. Noel didn't know how he could really help, but Molly, Sam's mom, spots Noel and rushes over to hug him. So, because Sam was missing, and they say he probably could, the cops say that he probably couldn't have survived. So she gets really upset and turns back to Sam's dad, Paul. Paul holds out his hand for Noel to shake. Noel, like, notices a smear of blood on the tracks. A smear of blood. He thought about how he kept saying their movie had to have blood. The police had declared Sam missing and presumed dead. So Noel was now a part of one of the search parties that went to search for him. There was a lot of search parties going to search for him, but Noel was part of one of them. But Sam was gone. There was no trace of him anywhere. Molly and Paul hugged Noel when he was going back to his room. He didn't really want to be hugged, but he just let them hug anyway. He just wanted to leave because like all the emotions and grief around him were more than he could like handle. He couldn't like really handle it. He couldn't be around them anymore. So Noel still couldn't believe that Sam might be dead. Now I'll read this next part to you right now. Page 29. Which part should I read? What am I reading? Okay, hold on. So yeah, he can't believe that Sam's still dead, and that Sam might be dead. Okay. So what if being upset had made him careless? But it happened this morning, not last night, he told himself. Sam wouldn't have still been upset this morning, right? Noel wasn't really convincing himself. Why did he have to be such a jerk sometimes? Yo, Noel, go long. Noel looked up to see one of his intramural buddies holding a football and pointing. Noel dutifully trotted in the direction indicated and caught a somewhat wobbly spiral after juggling it a couple times. He was about to throw it back, intending to return it in an upstaging perfect spiral, but his gaze, as he brought his arm forward, landed on a large black shape just at the edge of the trees. Noel let go of the ball, and it flopped all over the place before landing 50 feet short of its target. Wuss, Noel's friend called him. Noel ignored him. What had he just seen? Noel continued to ignore his friend, who was now shouting, denigrating comments about Noel's throwing ability. Noel hadn't seen what he had thought he'd seen, had he? When Noel reached the trees, he looked up into the sagging branches and then down into the tangled underbrush. He saw nothing out of the ordinary. It must have been his imagination. All that talk of black feathers and Sam's costume. It was messing with his head. So, Noel walks towards someone and calling his name, his friend. He's not really convincing himself that he's not really convincing himself that it's not his fault. So he starts playing football with his friend, but then he sees Blackbird. He sees Blackbird. Yes, it's Blackbird, 100%. Is he hallucinating? Nobody's really. He thinks he's hallucinating. I think it's just like agony or something. Like, I'll get into that later, actually. I'm curious how their own creation is real and haunting Noel, but I do have a theory about that, and I'll talk about that at the end. So Noel hadn't eaten since before he found out about Sam, so he went to the cafeteria to get some food. Amber saw him there, and Noel thought she was probably coming for an update on Sam, but he's never really there on Sundays, so they joke about how if he's never there on Sundays, then this is just his clone, and is his clone gonna get in line? He said his clone was a nice guy, and Amber winked, and as she said, he should give you lessons. Noel wasn't sure what he was putting on his plate, but he was really distracted by what was happening with Sam and stuff, and what he'd seen by the trees. So, Noel was thinking about how they'd gone on their first date just the night before, and if he should have called her by now. Amber said it would have been nice. Noel didn't realize he said that out loud. So, now Noel had his food, and he goes to sit down at a table, and there's crumbs and a red smear on the table. A red smear. If you remember earlier, Noel saw a red smear of blood on the tracks. Noel just thinks it's probably ketchup, but it might not really be. But maybe it's not really there, and it's just a Blackbird messing with his brain. He told himself that the thing he saw earlier in the woods was nothing. He didn't see anything. That's what he was telling himself, even though we know he did. So Noel looks at his plate and realizes how much food he got. And I'll read this part to you right now. Wait. 33. Okay. Noel looked at his tray. He blinked. Somehow he managed to get sauerkraut. I don't know how that's pronounced. Something kraut, beets, mashed potatoes, 3 dinner rolls without butter, 2 dill pickles, and 3 kinds of pie. Are you pregnant? Amber was eyeing his tray too. Apparently, Noel picked up a spoon, realizing he hadn't gotten a fork. He dug into the mashed potatoes as if all was right in the world. He noticed that the cafeteria smelled like beef stew. Was that the entree he'd missed? So Amber asks if he's pregnant, but he's a boy. Where else have we seen a pregnant man? In the flesh. One of my favorite stories in the Fazbear Frights books. Not my favorite anymore, because this is my favorite now. I'm not saying Noel is supposed to be like Matt. I'm just saying it might be a reference or something. Amber apologizes for dropping the bomb on Noel earlier about Sam, and he says it's okay. Amber says she didn't realize how close they were, but Noel begins to say that they're not that close, but then he starts to think about it, and he's like, actually, we are kind of close. He says that they've gotten kind of close and that Sam is a nice guy, and Amber says, like you. That's cute to me. Noel stands up and quickly says he has to go. Amber tells him to find her when to call her when he finds his braid. Okay. So yeah, this part is really interesting as well. So, I'm going to read this part to you now. Noel strode away from the table and dumped his tray in the return area. The uneaten food earned him a stern glance from one of the round women with the hairnets who worked in the cafeteria. He didn't care. He just had to... What was that? Noel stopped just outside the doors of the cafeteria and stared down the hall. He looked the other way, too, and then he turned to look behind him. He rubbed his eyes and checked the area again. Nothing was out of the ordinary. Dirty beige floor, pale yellow walls, posters vying for space on an overcrowded bulletin board that ran along the wall. A few students strolling in and out of the cafeteria. Nothing to see here, folks. Yeah? So why was Noel sure he just spotted something big and black flutter around the corner at the end of the hall? And what was that noise? Noel tilted his head and listened. It sounded like a rhythmic rustling, a sort of whispery sound. Like wet feathers being dragged along the floor. So Noel sees Blackbird again in the cafeteria this time. And he also heard Blackbird. Like, he heard the shuffling of feathers and stuff. So one of his frat brothers comes out and asks if he's okay, and he says he's fine. So he heads back to the frat house. When Noel gets back to the frat house, he sits on his bed, tries to relax. So he tries something his mother taught him, which usually worked. It worked most of the time, but it didn't work this time. Noel, on his way back to the frat house, saw something following him 4 times. Blackbird. So Noel keeps trying to tell himself that it's nothing. It's just a weird, like, fan contraption or something. But he knew the sound that he heard was the sound of feathers brushing against things. He kept seeing things on the corner of his eyes. Not directly, but it was as if he had an idea that he was seeing things. But the more he thought about it, the more he knew that he had seen something for sure. And again, while sitting on his bed, he saw Blackbird out of the corner of his eye, blocking his window. I mean, he didn't really see Blackbird for sure. He saw something shadowy and dark in front of his window, blocking his window, but just for like a split second. And then again, he sees it again. He runs to the window and closes the curtains. So I'll read this part to you now too. Okay, hold on, give me a second. Noel liked to think he was a pretty reasonable guy, but he knew what was going on here, and he knew it wasn't reasonable at all. It was very unreasonable. It was unreasonable, but he was sure it was true. Noel was seeing Sam in the Blackbird costume, and Sam was stalking Noel. Why was Sam stalking Noel? It was obvious, wasn't it? Sam was stalking Noel because he was now the Blackbird, and the Blackbird tortured those who confessed their dirty secrets. So first, Sam was going to toy with Noel the same way a bully toyed with his victim, and then Sam was going to kill Noel for being such a horrible person. Noel was sure of it, and the worst part was that Noel deserved it. Okay. So Noel thinks that a Blackbird is Sam trying to make him confess his dirty secrets, like a boy toying with his victims. Then he thinks Sam will kill him for being a horrible person. This reminds me a lot of FNaF 4, honestly. So the bully is Sam. The bully is Foxy Bro, right? Foxy Bro in FNaF 4 keeps scaring his little brother, the crying child, which I think is supposed to be like paralleling Noel here. And then on night 5 minigame, after toying with him a bunch, he kills him. Not on purpose, obviously, but it still seems like a lot like a parallel. So, tonight was movie night, but the movie today was a horror movie, and Noel didn't really want to watch a horror movie because he was scared for his life. Amber calls out to Noel because he seemed freaked out back at the cafeteria, and Noel was really freaked out. But talking to Amber puts him at ease. That's cute. That's cute. Afterward, Noel decided to just sleep and rest, but I'm gonna read this part to you now. Okay. Noel, no. At first, sleep wouldn't come. Noel's muscles wouldn't let go. They were so taut, they could have been strung on a guitar and plucked. And if they'd been plucked, Noel was sure they'd sound dissonant. There was no question he was out of tune. Noel tried closing his eyes. Sleep began to take him, and as soon as it did, images of implausibly huge wings scraped against his lids. Then he felt gigantic feathers battering against his entire body. He was being pummeled by stiff, elbow-length feathers. He could feel them drub against his skin, and an eerie contrast of soft versus hard. How could something as light as a feather beat him with such power and force? Fear pushed sleep from his consciousness. His eyes shot open. Flailing for the switch on his nightstand lamp, Noel listened to the thundering pace of his heart. Okay, that was alarming. Was that a dream? No, it couldn't have been a dream because Noel had never fallen asleep. He just started falling asleep. Noel stood up and got a bottle of water from his fridge, downing half of it. He sat on the edge of the bed and steadied his breath. It took several minutes, and then he tried not to notice his hand was shaking when he took another sip of water. So, Noel had a dream about Blackbird, but it wasn't really a dream because he never fell asleep, though it seemed like a dream. This could be how FNaF 4 actually works, because Michael draws Nightmare Fredbear under recent dreams in the survival logbook, implying that FNaF 4 is a dream, but the sister location Breaker Room map says otherwise. So it could be like this. FNaF 4 could be like this, but I have like yeah, okay. I'll just say that. So Noel tries to go back to sleep and he closes his eyes, but then something opens the door to his room. He knocks over his lamp trying to turn it on, but then when he finally got the lights on, he knocks over his lamp and shatters the light bulb. So he gets to the light switch and turns it on, but he saw his door was still closed. And it was locked. He couldn't go to sleep until the door was more secured, so he puts a chair under the doorknob. And then he made sure the window was locked, and it was. He asks himself if he could stop being a paranoid idiot. He didn't answer himself because he didn't know the answer. So yeah, we're like halfway through the book right now, by the way. So there's no way Noel is going back to sleep after this, so he decides to clean up the light bulb that broke and replace it. After that, he decides to start working on a screenplay that he was writing. Not for their current project, but one Noel was hoping to use as their midterm project. Like, it might not have had any use later on anyway, but like, it would just keep his mind off things. About an hour later, he finally decided to sleep, and the whole frat house was silent. Like, the music was done. And the movie, I think, was over, too. He still keeps a baseball bat beside his bed in case he needs protection. As he turned the light off, he thought he saw a shadow as it was turning off. And he thought so he decides to switch it back on, and there's nothing there. So Noel decides to use a flashlight instead of the lamp because, like, if he keeps turning on and off his lamp, he thinks it might not survive the night. So he tries going to sleep now, but he's not really relaxed. So his mom used to tell him when he was upset to think of good things. And she'd try to sing a song. She'd sing him a song to help him go to sleep or to help him relax, but it wouldn't really help him. But now, this is really cute, by the way. Now, Noel, now, what happened here? Where'd it go? Okay, so yeah, this is really cute to me. Now, he did have something to think about to relax. He had Amber to think about. And that's really cute. That's really cute, honestly. Because he does like Amber. So he started thinking about, like, her freckles and how careless she was about how she dressed. But, like, she still managed to look nice even so. So cute. True love, guys. So, but then all of a sudden he hears his window open. And something hit the ground. So, Noel grabs the flashlight, tries to turn it on, but accidentally flings it across the room because he's so scared. So he gets back to his lamp and turns it on. And then, nothing. There's nothing there at all. He wonders if he dreamt it, but no, he didn't. The window was still locked. So now I'm sorry. At this point when I was reading, it reminded me a lot of the FNaF 4 trailer when there was the line of, "What is it that you think you see?" So I think this story is explaining how FNaF 4 works. Definitely. Noel now decides to sleep with the light on because he can sleep through anything. So he got the flashlight back and put it on his nightstand and made sure the baseball bat was still by his bed. It was only 11:25 p.m., so he wondered if he could call Amber. Aww. But what would he say? I mean, if this was happening to you, what would you say? Noel thought of how pissed off Sam was yesterday, but he didn't know why he didn't know why he enjoyed bullying people in junior high and why he thought it was funny. He was wondering why did he piss Sam off. So yeah, finally he fell asleep. But then, right as he fell asleep, he hears a screeching sound. And I'll tell you now, it's the screeching of a bird. A blackbird, to be exact. So then a strike of lightning comes down from the sky and flashes an image of the blackbird into his mind. So he tries to regain consciousness, but he felt pinned to his bed, like he couldn't move at all. This reminds me a lot of sleep paralysis. I've never had it before, but I know basically what happens. You, like, see things around you, but you can't move. You can't do anything. You can't make a sound. So, yeah, he feels like stabbing pressure digging into his wrists and his ankles, which I think is definitely, like, Blackbird's bird claws. So he couldn't move at all. He felt paralyzed, like sleep paralysis. He was being pushed down into his bed. Something wasn't just hovering over him. Something was sitting on him, pushing him down. But then all of a sudden, Noel was free of it. So yeah, Noel knew that Blackbird was sitting on top of his bed. So he grabs the bat and swings it at Blackbird. But Blackbird disappears. But yeah, he had seen Blackbird, like, fully. He saw the eyes, the beak, the feathers, everything. But then it just disappeared. All of a sudden, it just disappeared. So Noel feels like this was all just a horror movie playing behind his eyes, but without any blood. And he was like, yeah. He was like, yeah, creep factor is all it needs. You don't need blood to be scary. So yeah, but he still felt like he was crazy to think that his and Sam's creation was coming to life. But it did. We know it did. So Noel checks his watch and saw it was 1 a.m. He was confused that it had been over an hour, and he doesn't remember what happened in that hour. He walked around the hall thinking. So he runs down the stairs and out of the frat house, and he was thinking, what if Blackbird just flew down and snatched him up? He thought if any of the things that happened were possible, anything could be possible. And yeah, this is FNaF, so like basically anything could be possible. So he runs back to his room and tries to stay awake because he didn't want to sleep. He was too scared because of what just happened. So he did push-ups, sit-ups, played games, listened to music, and then he watched a movie. But he knew he couldn't stay awake any longer, so as soon as he closes his eyes again to sleep, he heard the loud screeching again.